Sarah, Fox News. Jury deliberations began today in the hush money trial of former President Trump, where the judge told the panel they need to reach a unanimous decision on whether to convict or acquit on charges of falsifying business records to influence the 2016 election through unlawful means.
But Judge Juan Merchan instructed the jury, quote, "You need not be unanimous as to what those unlawful means were." The three options for the jury include a Federal Election Campaign Act violation, the falsification of other business records, or a violation of tax laws. These are the possible crimes that elevate Trump's charges to felonies. Today, the jury sent two notes to Judge Merchan, one to clarify his jury instructions, and the other to revisit testimony about a 2015 Trump Tower meeting between Trump, his one-time lawyer Michael Cohen, and former American media CEO David Pecker.
Fox's Nate Foy outside the courthouse in New York City. The judge decided the jury will rehear the testimony and jury instructions when they reconvene tomorrow morning. Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito has rejected calls to step aside from cases involving Donald Trump and the January 6 defendants after the controversy over flags that were flown at his home. Secretary of State Antony Blinken calling the death of Palestinian civilians by an Israeli airstrike in Rafah horrific.
I don't think anyone who has seen the images cannot be deeply affected by them.
Israel says it was targeting two Hamas leaders and a secondary explosion killed the civilians. It says it's investigating. Yesterday, the White House said the strike did not cross a red line set by President Biden that could change U.S. support for Israel. South Korea's military says North Korea has fired about 10 ballistic missiles toward its eastern waters. America is listening to Fox News.
Why choose
93 WIBC Mobile News. On the level, on the go.
It's not how you should be driving in a parking lot. I'm Harrison Silcox. Here's what's trending this hour. Indianapolis Metro Police have arrested another person in a reckless driving case. It started with police putting a drone in the air Friday night in the South Side.
They witnessed a Dodge Charger performing burnouts and what we call spinning in a large parking lot near a group of people.
IMPD officer Amanda Hibschman. Police say the driver, Reginald Winfield, refused to pull over, led officers on a chase. He got a flat tire and was later caught on Keystone Avenue. You may have heard about an IPS teacher who filmed two students fighting and didn't report it last fall. The Marion County Prosecutor's Office announced a charge of neglect for Julius Jonikin Wednesday. Court documents claim the 23-year-old had encouraged the students to fight and was encouraging the punches that were being thrown while the camera was rolling. And Jonikin resigned a few days after the fight was reported. If you're a Duke Energy customer, you should know the company wants to raise your rates. Here's Donnie Burgess.
All opinions on that rate hike are welcome next Tuesday, June 4th at Ivy Tech Terre Haute. Power providers like Duke Energy and AES Indiana have been criticized over the last year for what some customers see as a lackluster response to severe storms, yet the companies continue to argue for increased power bills. Tens of thousands of Duke customers lost power Sunday during severe storms that also delayed the Indy 500. You can speak your piece to the State Utility Regulatory Commission, but they will not be able to answer any questions. Donnie Burgess, 93 WIBC Mobile News.
On the level, on the go, and on WIBC.com. Now here's the forecast from the American Standard Cooling Weather Center.
This Wednesday evening, we're looking at mostly clear skies, a low temperature dropping around 52 degrees, and winds out of the northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. We move into a mostly sunny day with high 70s in the forecast tomorrow. I'm Wish TV Storm Track 8 meteorologist Junior Sudas for 93 WIBC.
Reggie was a nurse for 16 years.
I had become very burnt out. I wasn't making good money.
Then it happened.
There was an ad for My Computer Career, and it just spoke to me.
My Computer Career was the best decision he ever made.
I could study anywhere from my laptop, and I was working in the first couple of weeks of me being in class.
Reggie hit a home run.
The field is teeming with jobs.
Become an IT pro in just months with zero experience at mycomputercareer.edu.
The school is amazing.
It's not rocket science. It's mycomputercareer.edu. This is one student's experience. Individual results vary.
Nobody cares for you like family. Family Heating and Air.
Hi, this is Malia with Family Heating and Air, and as a mom myself, I know it's really important to keep the kiddos healthy. Air quality, humidity, those are super big issues on my concern list. If you share any of these concerns, give family a call, 317-577-8077.
Family Heating and Air is your trusted local independent American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer.
There's a price war in the insurance business, and you may be paying too much. Call the Term Lifeline right now and see if you can save 40%. $500,000 plans and up, that's our specialty. Even great smokers rates. Protect your family today. Call the Term Lifeline right now for a free quote. 866-549-TERM, 866-549-TERM, 866-549-TERM.
Tune in Saturdays 9 to 1 for the Home and Garden Show for advice and fun. Brought to you by Michaelis. Water, storms, fire, and wet basements. Life happens. Michaelis happens to help you through it.
If you can plan barbecues and weddings, you can plan to protect yourself from a natural disaster. Sign up for local alerts, prepare an emergency kit, and make a family communications plan. Get started at ready.gov/plan.
Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
No Kid Hungry is providing healthy meals and hope to hungry kids so they can build better futures. Learn more at helpnokidhungry.org.
Tony Katz.
It's Kendall and Casey.
The Amber and Nigel show.
All right, when does your show start? Do we know? I feel like I've been promoting this for 9 years now.
This is the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
I told you very crystal clearly, ladies and gentlemen, if you made the mistake of not just trying Donald Trump, former President Donald Trump, for the documents case in Florida, if instead you decided to go do all of these other weird trials about porn and lawyers and about insurrection-y things and about whether or not he said something about Jean Carroll in the 90s and all of this other nonsense, then it was going to come back and bite you in the butt. We warned you very clearly that there was realistically only one real crime that you could pin on Donald Trump. And if you wanted to get him with a crime, then you were going to have to A, be patient, and B, do the due diligence of sticking with that solid law case. Instead, members of the left, including DA Alvin Bragg and then Jack Smith in DC, they've been running around trying every single case that they can possibly come up with. And it has backfired tremendously. And the reason it's backfired tremendously is very easy. That up until this point, and I've argued this in good faith with WIBC hosts Ethan Hatcher and Abdul Hakim Shabazz. And the argument that what Trump has going for him right now into this election is that everyone already knows everything about him. Is that Trump can be kind of boisterous, bombastic, he's an entertainer, and that he appoints much better people to run the bureaucracy of the country, which is bloated and gross and overstuffed. He appoints better people to run that than Joe Biden has appointed to run the country. And don't worry, we'll talk about old Pete Buttigieg here in a minute. But when it comes to Donald Trump, the entire country was pretty much okay with the fact that, he says weird things, but the economy is good. There's pretty much peace in the U.S. interests around the world. And also, I'm not worried about people climbing into my backyard and, murdering my family in the border states. So when you take those things into consideration, all Trump has to do is point at Biden for this election and or any of the crazy things that he says or any of the things that are boisterous or out there or are perhaps hyperbolic. If any of those things are proven right, Donald Trump soars in the polls. And by giving Trump all of these court cases, which a lot of people think are the worst thing for Trump's campaign. Oh, no, not even a little bit. These court cases are a huge help to Trump. Because no one's out there deciding whether or not they're going to vote for Donald Trump right now. Get out of here. Donald Trump is not running around running his mouth. Instead, he's coming out of the courtroom every day going, "They're after me. I've told you this whole time." And the more that we take a look at Judge Merchan and the merchandise of this banana republic, which we're going to be talking about in the next segment, the more it is clear that Donald Trump is going to be able to use this court case no matter which way it turns out. And after 1 hour of deliberation, according to Marco Rubio, senator from Florida, boy, it's going to be wild. Either way, it's good for Trump. Now, that aside, we'll get to that here in a minute. This is the quick news roundup. Let's get you guys up to speed. The Israeli embassy in Mexico was set ablaze today as pro-Palestine / pro-Hamas protesters got angry. That was late last night into today. Yeah, guys, that's how the radical left protests. None of this is new. When the radical left, who claims to be against genocide and all of this other stuff, takes at its word the Hamas organization who says that Israel bombed a refugee camp, when video evidence clearly shows it was a secondary explosion because Hamas keeps its munitions beneath civilians, so Israel won't shoot the munitions. When those munitions did, in fact, explode and kill people, Hamas immediately blamed the Israelis. And so that's enough for far left-leaning protesters. Just like George Floyd and Michael Brown, doesn't matter what the facts of the situation are, it's time to get out there and riot and burn things down. So here is a clip of the Israeli embassy burning in Mexico City. So there you see just the absolute nonsense of mostly peaceful protesting by individuals on the radical left. That also brings us now to the Biden administration's desperate attempt to raise Biden's approval ratings, because it is abysmal. And I don't mean like Joey Tribbiani from Friends Abysmal, where it's actually kind of a good thing. I mean the worst approval rating for an incumbent in modern polling history. It's so bad that Biden is now running around the country pandering desperately to groups that are supposed to be really comfortably in the Biden camp. The 2012 Obama coalition, the origins of DEI in higher politics, as it were, and where you go around to different minority groups of the country and say, you are special because you are, and then you either insert the word women or gay or black or brown or Latinx or some other nonsensical term that doesn't actually denote the value of an individual and is rather demeaning. Well, here's Joe Biden actually admitting that the best thing about his administration is that he's checked a lot of boxes on the amount of sexual orientations and colors he's got.
To me, the values of diversity, equality, inclusion are literally, and that's not kidding, the core strengths of America. That's why I'm proud to have the most diverse administration in history. It taps into the full talents of our country. And starts at the top with the vice president.
Oh my. Imagine admitting that you chose your vice president because she is a person of color. Imagine saying that you chose your vice president because of what's in their pants. Oh dear goodness. What a move. And of course, the polling is so atrociously bad, Biden feels kind of shoehorned into all of this kind of nonsense, and it's not working. Because as we have seen in the last couple of months, Americans at the base level are no longer really playing into this kind of fear-mongering and nonsensical cancel culture from the left that if you dare say anything against the DEI framework from on high, we'll destroy you. The rest of the country doesn't care anymore. It's played out. And even the aggressively DEI groups are not coming out for Biden because they don't think he was far enough to the left. And the rest of the country won't vote for him because he didn't govern as a moderate, which is what he ran for the first time. The third reason no one's going to vote for him is because who he has picked to run the bureaucracy. The bureaucracy in this country is awful. However, it is very, very much standard practice at this point that the President of the United States appoints members to direct these massive alphabet organizations that do most of the regulating in this country. The vast majority of them should not exist. So until those organizations are taken down, oh Lord, please let many of these organizations waste away in the fire and flame. But until many of these organizations are indeed taken down, it matters a heck of a lot who the President of the United States appoints to run these alphabet organizations. And the DOT, the Department of Transportation, is run by good old Secretary of Transportation, Pete Buttigieg, the mayor of South Bend, who in his acceptance speech talked about how he really liked how trains go really fast. Oh boy. Well, here's Pete Buttigieg. After that, bipartisan infrastructure. Remember the bipartisan infrastructure bill that no one shut up about in 2021? You know, the thing that was $1 trillion. Well, there was $7 trillion given to old Pete Buttigieg himself just for electric vehicles. And $5 billion of that was supposed to go towards building brand new electric charging stations. And, well, even on good old Face the Nation on CBS News, things took a turn for the worse. Here's Pete Buttigieg not knowing how to answer where all the money went.
The Federal Highway Administration says only 7 or 8 charging stations have been produced with a $7.5 billion investment that taxpayers made back in 2021. Why isn't that happening more quickly?
So the president's goal is to have 500,000 chargers up by the end of this decade. Now, in order to do a charger, it's more than just plunking a small device into the ground. There's utility work, and this is also really a new category of federal investment. But we've been working with each of the 50 states. Every one of them is getting formula dollars to do this work, engaging them in the first handful, again, by 2030, 500,000 chargers. And the very first handful of chargers are now already being physically built.
Imagine receiving $5 billion to put up not like entire, like, quote unquote, gas stations for electricity, just like the individual pump, the kinds that you have seen around the city. And Pete Buttigieg has admitted that states have received tons of this money and none are going up. By the way, these are supposed to be going up at regular intervals along major highways and interstates. Now, I don't know if you guys are aware of this. There are these things called rest areas. Most of the rest areas in the country, in fact, the vast supermajority of rest areas in the country, are owned by state governments, which means that states could indeed put some of these electric charging mechanical stations down at rest stops on the federal dollar, because that's what they're technically for. They just didn't. The man spent what the equivalent is if I paid someone $500,000 to build me a house, and they came back 2.5 years later with a really crappily made $4 gingerbread house made out of graham crackers, Elmer's glue, and the sad tears of a child. That's the entire Biden administration. So when you look around and wonder why it is that the DNC is in panic, as we talked about yesterday, and why Trump is just having the field day of field days amidst several court cases, that's why. Well, we're going to talk about this court case up next, because this is some real Banana Republic stuff. I mean, we're talking, I've not even seen Law & Order episodes that were this wild. Stick around, it's the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
Tony Katz.
Do they still do mail in Carmel?
Carmel, don't ever change.
I love the living statues that sit on the benches. They're awesome.
Yes, that's how people from Greenwood earn extra money. Oh, I'm going to get emails. What have I done? You know everybody here is just in debt and house poor up to their ass. Don't you laugh, Zionsville. You have it worse. $1.13 trillion of credit card debt. Half of that is on the west side of Carmel.
Tony Katz, mornings 6 to 9 on 93 WIBC and WIBC.com.
Hi, this is Denny Smith, and there's nothing more precious to so many of us than the safety and privacy in our homes. And they are the gathering place for everything from Mother's Day to graduation celebrations. And this is a great time to reach out to Zero Res to clean up your carpets and floors before family and friends show up for everything that's happening in May. So how about having Zero Res help you take on dust, dander, allergens, and even bacteria in your carpets with a great spring deal? Get 3 rooms Zero Resified starting at just $149 and take 20% off all their other services. Those carpets are the largest air filter in the home, and the ZR Water Difference cleans them up with no soap, no residue, no harsh chemicals, leaving everything really clean. The Zero Res service is easy to line up. You can go online at ZeroResIndy.com to do the scheduling at your convenience. Now mention WIBC and get 3 rooms of carpet clean starting at $149, plus you'll get 20% off all their other services too. Call 317-388-5141 or book online at ZeroResIndy.com. Denny Smith here. The Memorial Day sale at Sundown Gardens continues. 20% off all container trees and shrubs at Sundown Gardens. Now's a great time to redo the landscape at your home, and Sundown Gardens has a great selection of nursery items to help you. Do you need help figuring out how to redo the landscape? Well, let the friendly nursery staff help you with your selections. Don't forget to check out the greenhouse for a great selection of summer annuals, hanging baskets, and more. Sundown Gardens, 186th Street and Spring Mill Road in Westfield, sundown.gardens.com.
Getting quality employees to fill positions in your company is essential, but finding those people can be a major hassle unless you use ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter makes finding quality people a breeze. ZipRecruiter's advanced technology identifies candidates with the right skills, sends you great matches, then you can easily invite them to apply. 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. See for yourself. Go to ZipRecruiter.com/free to try ZipRecruiter for free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free.
Every child deserves the best teachers, facilities, and academic programs to set them up for success both now and in the future. At Milton Hershey School in Hershey, Pennsylvania, we make that a reality for children from qualifying families who are looking for greater opportunities. Milton Hershey School enrolls students from pre-K through 12th grade from across the United States to live and learn on a beautiful state-of-the-art campus with all costs covered. Students who are accepted to Milton Hershey School have access to a top-tier education, along with health care, meals, housing, and fully funded career pathways to pursue whatever they're passionate about, from performing arts to internships to coding. Students can even accrue up to $95,000 to continue their education after high school, thanks to the generosity of chocolatier Milton Hershey and his wife, Catherine. Are you looking to set your child up for success or know a child who could benefit from Milton Hershey School? Learn more at mhskids.org/admissions.
Hi, I'm Vanessa Williams, and I want to share with you the role that diabetes has had in my family. I lost my grandmother at the early age of 64 due to complications with diabetes. She was warm, generous, and a constant encouragement for me to follow my heart. Did you know that African Americans experience chronic kidney disease at a rate that's 25% higher than white Americans? And we're almost 4 times more likely to develop kidney failure. Diabetes and high blood pressure are leading causes of kidney disease, which can result in kidney failure, needing dialysis, or a kidney transplant. The good news is that you have the power to check out how well your kidneys are doing and learn ways to prevent them from failing. So go to your doctor and get yourself checked out. Visit linkmylovetv.org to learn more. Get the facts, get checked, and get healthy.
Are you prepared for an emergency or disaster? Because it's not a matter of if, but when. Don't find yourself saying,
when the storm rolls in, my time to find a pet-friendly evacuation center will have run out.
The scorching heat wave will leave me powerless to cool my insulin.
I'll face a hurricane without meds. Now that's a tough pill to swallow.
Let's prepare so we all have a better story to tell. Get started at ready.gov/older adults. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
This hour on 93 WIBC, powered by Absolute Comfort, your American Standard Mitsubishi electric ductless mini splits dealer.
This is the Tony Kennett Cast on 93 WIBC.
Welcome back to the Tony Kennett Cast here on 93 WIBC. You can't start any segment talking about how people are out of touch without playing Hall & Oates. It's actually a crime in 34 states. Speaking of crimes in states, New York City and the state of New York itself has some very weird laws surrounding trying certain things based on felony and misdemeanor and whether or not you can calculate one way or the other, and it really produces some very, very shady situations. And that, in essence, is this Trump trial here in New York City. Now, the jury has just finished deliberating for the day. You know, no winners, no prizes. Someone did make the joke today that this took the jury for O.J. Simpson less time, which is a very good joke. I'll admit I laughed at that one. The core question that the entire country is facing is, after open comment from the media, of course, which the jury's not allowed to see, obviously, on the left and the right, that the prosecution absolutely pooped their pants on trying to prove that Donald Trump was guilty of 34 different counts of falsifying business records, but his lawyer actually falsified the records, and also they may not actually be falsified because Trump may have paid Stormy Daniels not to talk about their one-night stand when Trump's wife was pregnant, but actually it was to prevent Trump from losing the election, even though everyone already knew Trump was, you know, not exactly the Superman of purity. Anywho, very rock-solid case. I'm sure you can, see past all of the fact that this is an entire steaming bowl of, putrid spaghetti. Now, there's a rock-solid case, of course, and even if it were, to be quite frank with you guys, an honest, normal, kind of a straight up and down case, Judge Merchan in New York City has not been doing anyone any favors. Since the very beginning of the case, he's been exceptionally antagonistic towards Trump and the team, which has allowed Trump to come out and say, they're after me, they're after me. And that's been the entire claim. The entire claim Trump has trotted out again and again. The Biden administration is after me, they're after you, but I am in the way. This is a very serious thing. And therefore, we need to kind of take a look at why this court case is being brought forward. And then Judge Merchan slapped Trump with a gag order, which It's quite the move. So slaps Trump with a gag order. So then Trump brings out a bunch of people who are his allies to say the very things that Trump wants to say himself, which is, smart move. Very easy work around there. And the trial proceeds. And the prosecution, Alvin Bragg, brings out Stormy Daniels, the porn star, to talk about the affair in detail with Trump, which, by the way, had also changed from her story the last couple of times that she's told it. Never a good thing for your witness to be changing the story on the stand. And the judge gets so annoyed the fact that there is a porn star describing a sex scene, clearly exaggerating certain things, that kind of throws the whole thing down. And of course ignores any motion, dismiss, this is a nonsense, what are we even doing here, from the defense. Then Michael Cohen, Trump's former lawyer, is brought up and is caught lying on the stand. And also audio is played of Michael Cohen basically saying, by hook or by crook, I'll do anything to throw Trump in prison. So that didn't go very well. And at the end of the arguments from the defense and from the prosecution, you actually had Judge Merchan make the decision to tell the defense they were not allowed to tell the jury Trump was innocent, which is a wild thing. That, like, the defense can finish up and say, you know what, none of these things that Trump is even being charged with are a crime. At most, this is a misdemeanor, and even if it were a misdemeanor Trump was guilty of, the statute of limitation on this should have been brought in back in 2019. And Judge Merchan wouldn't literally not let the defense say that. So then, and this is the most bewildering Banana Republic thing I have ever seen, so much so that I whipped out my phone and called 3 or 4 people, including a mentor, including Hammer and Nigel, the show before this one, including my colleagues of mine over at the Daily Signal. Judge Merchan instructed the jury that in their deliberation, they did not have to agree which crimes Donald Trump was guilty of. Remember, he's charged with 34 counts for a felony. All the jury has to agree on is that somewhere out in the ether, they believe Donald Trump committed a crime. Now, you may be out there and saying, well, what does this mean? This means that I'm not even going to bring this up. This is how this was explained today on mainstream media.
That these jurors could do. He just delivered what is being called really the pinnacle of all of this. He said that there is no need to agree on what has occurred. They can disagree on what the crime was among the 3 choices. Thus, this means that they could split 4-4-4, and the judge would still treat them unanimously.
That is the most insane thing. That, first of all, will be completely thrown out in any kind of appeal anywhere in any way. I can't even see Supreme Court Justices Ketanji Brown Jackson or the wise Latina Sotomayor, to quote President Obama, as being okay with this. By the way, if you've ever watched 5 Seconds of Matlock or Law and Order SVU, you will know that one of the things that is routinely talked about on sitcoms about law is that you have to be very careful. The blend of crimes or counts that you bring someone up on charges for in a court case. Otherwise, you would just bring someone in, list every crime on earth, and then if different jury members decide, the person's probably guilty of jaywalking, you think he's guilty of theft, you think he's guilty of murder, you think he's just ugly, and therefore I'm going to count that as unanimous, he committed a crime, so it's a felony. What? It is one of the most bewildering things for a judge to make the case of to the jury. It's patently insane. And by the way, an hour into deliberation, according to a tweet from Senator Marco Rubio of Florida, that there are already questions flying out from the jurors to the judge because none of this is clear. It is the most hamstringed, ham-fisted, ham-hock, putrid, rotting ham of a case that I have seen brought before. And I'm no legal expert, but I've seen a fair amount of cases studying, again, political journalism and commentary. You kind of got to read a lot of court cases. And one of the things that I have never, ever seen before is a judge saying, all you got to do is decide that you think he's guilty of something, and I'll declare it unanimous. So when Donald Trump goes out in front of the public and says, they are after me, this political trial is a sham sent by President Biden, who, by the way, the Biden-Harris campaign sent Robert De Niro to speak outside the courthouse as to why Trump should be in jail. the actual campaign instead of just staying away from it and just kind of letting the process happen, which is what it looked like Biden was going to do originally. Now they're actually campaigning outside of Trump's courthouse. Okay. When Trump says those kind of things, and Judge Merchan with this Banana Republic stuff, and Donald Trump with his accusational comments, and then the gag orders placed on Trump, and then Biden campaigning outside the courtroom, sending people to say that Trump should be in jail, and calling all of the Trump supporters gangsters and things as Robert De Niro did, it's very difficult for the average American voter to say, I don't think Trump is right about this. The average American voter looks at that and goes, looks like Trump has a point, which is the kind of stuff the average American was saying when Donald Trump was debating Hillary in 2016. It's the exact same thing. Because again, remember, everyone knows that Trump says hyperbolic, exaggeratory, and crazy things from time to time. And they're still okay with him being president according to the polls. So if any of those things that he says look true, oh man, it is a very disastrous time for the Biden campaign. It is going to get wild around the DNC. Up next, we're going to be talking about something that may have fallen out of the media, but is certainly worth talking about. It's time to discuss some of these migrant caravans down at the southern border. We'll be talking with Chris Clem, retired Border Patrol chief, up next. This is the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
Harvey, this African safari is great. We planned just right, so we'll be home for this weekend's Indy 1500 Gun and Knife Show out the fairgrounds. Yeah, we were smart to get outfitted for this here safari at the last gun show. Got big game rifles, scopes, custom-loaded bullets, crossbows, knives, even a GPS. Hey, what's that sound? Oh, bet he's after cheetahs. What, Harv? No, he's not with the IRS, you dumb bunny. You hear that? That's a rogue bull elephant, and he's starting to charge. Oh, I missed. What do we do, Harvey? Think outside the box. Well, I did. I just got a bullet out of the box. Give me my crossbow. Well, got him. Yep, he looks pretty sharp in his arrow shirt. What? He's still charging? Well, dang, Harvey, do something. Wow, with only a knife, how did you stop that elephant from charging? Oh, you just cut up his credit cards.
Celebrity voice and imaginary character impersonated. The Indy 1500 Gun, Knife, and Outdoor Show this Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at the State Fairgrounds.
Hey, you nip it!
You love the summer in Indy, so don't ruin it painting. Do what Judy did. She called Rhino Shield.
The house that Rhino Shield did for my husband and I, after having the house painted with kind of usual house paint, I was seeing cracks appearing about every 3 years and just wasn't very satisfied with that.
Rhino Shield's a ceramic coating specifically formulated for our unique climate.
I can't speak highly enough about the Rhino Shield crew. They also were great at working with me to get the exact right color because I was very particular.
Indy, you can get the 25-year guaranteed protection of Rhino Shield right now for 10% off the regular price.
I would not hesitate to call Rhino Shield, and I am just thrilled to recommend Rhino Shield to my friends and neighbors and family.
Here's Rhino Shield's Shane Smith.
This offer is limited, so call me at 888-RHINO-41. That's 888-RHINO-41.
Don't paint.
Don't vinyl.
Go Rhino.
Never paint your house again. Rhino Shield.
It's the first day of the first grade, and she found a new best friend. It's a laid-back Sunday afternoon you wish would never end.
The homemade taste of Bluebell and good friends gathered round. The good old days are being made right now.
Grab a frosty mug and try the newest flavor from Bluebell, A&W Root Beer Float Ice Cream. A creamy vanilla-flavored ice cream swirled together with an A&W Root Beer flavored sherbet. A new way to enjoy your favorite root beer float.
The good old days are being made right now.
The good old days are being made right now.
Look for Bluebell ice cream at all Meijer stores.
Why choose a Sleep Number smart bed?
Can I make my side softer?
Can I make my side firmer whenever I want? Can we sleep cooler?
Sleep Number does that. Cools up to 8 times faster and lets you choose your ideal comfort on either side. 94% of Sleep Number smart sleepers report better sleep. J.D. Power ranks Sleep Number #1 in customer satisfaction with mattresses purchased in-store. And now save 50% on the Sleep Number limited edition smart bed. For J.D. Power 2023 award information, visit jdpower.com/awards. To find a store near you, visit sleepnumber.com.
At Busey Wealth Management, we're proud to partner with individuals, families, and foundations, ensuring possibilities become achievements. From preserving and enhancing your assets to securing your legacy for future generations, we're focused on your success. Busey Bank, building business, growing wealth. Since 1868, member FDIC.
Go where the pros go. Drexel Interiors for Timberlake Kitchen and Bath Cabinets. Visit Drexel's new design center on 146th Street at River Road or on North Shadeland. DrexelIN.com.
Before I got jacked, I was on the same track. Back up.
It's the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
Welcome back to the Tony Kinnett Cast here on 93 WIBC. That's 93.1 FM out of Indianapolis. The live streams on YouTube and Twitter X, and the podcast, everywhere else. Joining us this evening to talk about all of the nuances, the crazy junk that is continually pushed out over the southern border is Chris Clem. Of course, he's the retired chief patrol agent down at U.S. Border Patrol, and he's a guy that's really got a good grip on some of this stuff without all of the, the additional fluff that people put into things one side or the other. Chris, thanks for joining us.
Glad to be here and look forward to the conversation.
So I want to first just kind of hit right out of the bat. What's the current state of the southern border? It's something that we see come to the media for a little bit, and there's a lot of news coverage on it. And things have kind of quieted down as there have been court cases and international stuff on the other side of the ocean.
Well, it's still chaotic. I mean, there's still a crisis at hand. I mean, I don't know if you call it a crisis when it's been 3.5+ years of sustained chaos, but I call it a crisis. I live in a border state. We're seeing numbers while they're still in the 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 a day. That's down from 12,000 a day in December, but it's a problem, right? It is people from all over the world coming over here, people from countries that do not necessarily call us friends, China, Middle Eastern countries that have issues with us. It's crazy. And again, we're apprehending a lot of people because they're turning themselves into Border Patrol, tying up the hands of our agents. And there's a lot of gotaways, a lot of people that are we don't even know who they are or what their intent is that are showing up in places that we have no idea. So it is still a problem. It is a matter of national security. That's the way I've been framing this since I was an agent, since I was a chief, and since I've retired, that border security is national security. Right. Immigration and border security are definitely related, but they're not mutually exclusive. And that's the problem. Politics gets involved. We need to look at securing the border, do that first because America deserves that. And then we can work on cleaning up the immigration system.
Absolutely. You wouldn't happen to be willing to work in a cabinet position regarding Homeland Security, would you?
You know what? If the offer comes up, it would definitely be something I would like to have that conversation with whoever. Hopefully, the right person gets in office after this election. I'd be honored to be considered anyway.
So a lot of people on their phones. I know that sometimes in the morning I wake up and I swipe my thumb to the left and I'm instantly hit with maybe a few news stories that pop up from various sources. And one of the things that I'll see from time to time is that there's a migrant caravan, and there's some kind of a large mob caravan-like group that they say is heading from the southern part of Mexico up to the northern border of Mexico into the United States, and that it's this ominous threat that's coming. And sometimes we don't hear anything else about it. Sometimes, I guess it inches closer and there's some coverage of these tens of thousands of people. I kind of feel that our listeners could benefit a little bit this evening from kind of an overview. What on earth are these caravans and how do they get started?
Well, I mean, I'm going to tell you honestly, they're really a propaganda show for open border advocates and non-government organizations that want to feed into this continuous border chaos. There's usually an advocate that likes to do press events and get people riled up and make this cry that, no human is illegal. And again, there's a lot of propaganda behind it. From an operational perspective, a tactical response from the Border Patrol, we don't even concern ourselves with caravans because we can follow a mass of 5, 6, 7, 8,000 people moving through a country. But what it does is it brings attention to how ridiculous the policies are here in the United States, especially when it comes to our border security. The other thing it does is it puts a lot of pressure, or at least some pressure, on Mexico. So they have to respond. Unfortunately, they respond by giving them, visas that are usually good for 30, 60, 90 days. So they can lawfully traverse through Mexico and then show up and turn themselves in at our southern border, because that's what generally happens. Because you never hear about their caravan all arriving at one particular point. A few years ago, a good chunk of them came up the Pacific coast and showed up in Tijuana and stayed in some shelters. And there was a few hundred that tried to make an entry. But the reality is they show up at the southern border of Mexico, get the media, get the propaganda going. Mexico responds, gives them visas. They go up about halfway up through the country, and then they disperse into different groups. They get back into the smuggling cycle. Each cartel controls it. Then they arrive at the border, and ultimately turn themselves in. So tactically, from a law enforcement operational piece, we don't really concern ourselves. But when you look at the attention that this brings, it actually aids and abets the unlawful flow of people through Mexico. It legalizes them temporarily. Then they show up at our border and turn themselves in and tie the hands up Border Patrol. So, again, it makes a good news story, but it really you have to peel back a layer and say, who's funding these caravans? Who's given the airtime to one or two particular caravan leaders? There's some kind of political statement being made there, and really it just kind of points to the fact that we have, for all intents and purposes under this administration, welcome anybody to come in illegally, and then we'll figure it out. And that couldn't be more opposite of what we should be doing. So again, caravans make a lot of news story, but reality is they dissipate and they go their separate ways and show up because Mexico ultimately legalizes them temporarily. You can go down to any major area, major crossing, like my old area in Yuma, when a week or two after the caravans disappear, and then you'd see hundreds of people show up at a time, and you'd find those temporary travel visas thrown right there on the ground, right there at the border, because they didn't want to have any status in Mexico. So it's all a propaganda game when it comes down to the caravans.
We're on with Chris Clem, retired Chief Patrol Agent for the United States Border Patrol. One of the things that pops into my mind as you're explaining this Border Patrol situation in response to these caravans is, of course, there's the tossing the visas on the ground and this weird coordinated effort and dispersion. But there's also the rounding up of the large group of people down at the southern point of Mexico. Who is getting these groups together? Because as you've pointed out, when these groups get up here, they're Iranians, they're from the stands, they're from the Indo-Pacific, they're Chinese nationals, they're from very strange, Cambodian nationals and from Burma. And they're funneling up in these large groups. I mean, first of all, the number one thing that comes to my mind is it's kind of got to be like a Tower of Babel situation. Because again, the idea with these caravans is that this large group of Spanish speaking people heading forward, but when you actually talk to some of these people in these groups, that's not the case at all. I mean, is there any idea that you groups have down in the border states who is organizing these caravans at all? I mean, is it the left-wing NGOs or what are we looking at?
Yeah, there's not one particular one that I could truly name because, but they are, I would say, very progressive, New World Order type, NGOs that are very. So
they are being organized. It's not just hey, I'm going here. Hey, you're going here too. SA, let's go together.
Yeah. So you'll have the front forward facing propaganda is going to be a lot of the South American, Central American, organized groups, right? But then all the people from around the world will show up into these same areas, and that's again the cartel controls all of that. They are dictating which direction they're going. They are controlling what NGO is doing what. It's so organized that there are groups that are actually handing out maps and instructions on how to arrive to certain points on the border. I mean, we've seen that. We do have assets and we have some cooperation with Mexico. Right. I think it could be better and stronger and more of an enforcement, but nonetheless, that's their country and we've got to abide by their rules. But at the end of the day, it is all organized by international groups, international refugee groups, that are they're probably very profitable nonprofit organizations down there, and the cartel's in the mix. I mean, we know that because we've heard those stories. We've even witnessed a recent news article on somebody that was from Turkey that was apprehended just a few hundred miles away from me in Jacumba, California, that said there's crazy people coming through here, that he saw while he was traveling. So I mean, it's all organized. Majority of the people that aren't involved in caravans are flying into Cancun or Mexico City. And then from there, they're hopping on planes to, at least in my region, to either Tijuana or to Mexicali, Baja California. And then from there, they just depends on what network they're part of. And then they come in. And I want to make it very clear, these large groups, 50, 100 plus at a time, will find gaps in our infrastructure and just cross and wait for Border Patrol to come pick them up. And that's the big problem. When you have this type of policy that allows people just to come in and you're not closing the infrastructure that we've designed, it allows for this easy illegal entry, and it ties up our resources. It's designed by the cartel because Border Patrol has got to respond to a group of 100 on the ground. And when you have limited resources and very finite, that leaves areas wide open. And what do you think's happening behind us? That's where those high value targets, the drug smugglers, maybe the criminal aliens, potential terrorists are getting through. And that's why we have close to 1.8 million known gotaways just in the last 3.5 years.
That's beyond incredible. Chris Clem, again, retired Chief Patrol Agent, U.S. Border Patrol. Thank you so much for taking a little bit of time to break some of the stuff down with us. Stay safe down there in Arizona. And I, too, hope that we can finally see some good policies here coming up.
You got it. Me too. Look forward to talking to you again.
We'll be back in just a second. This is the Tony Kinnett Cast here on 93 WIBC.
Kendall and Casey.
Who is having a conversation with the people scanning their groceries
Apparently
anymore?
That's a sign of service, and people want to have that one-on-one service.
No, they don't.
With each
Kevin, I do self-checkout because I don't want to do small
Exactly.
talk. I want to skip that. I just want to get my stuff and get out.
Nobody wants to have a conversation with the person they're checking out their groceries with.
Kendall and Casey. Weekdays 9 till noon on 93 WIBC and WIBC.com.
1 in 6 seniors faces the threat of hunger, and millions more live in isolation. Drop off a hot meal and say a quick hello. Volunteer for Meals on Wheels by donating your lunch break at americaletsdolunch.org. This message brought to you by Meals on Wheels America and the Ad Council.
Hammer Nigel here. Hammer, this is actually pretty amazing. If you could get a 15% upfront bonus on your money and a competitive return that's averaged 7% a year for the past 10 years, what would you say?
Abso-freaking-lutely. And that's what Bill Demery can offer you right now. A 15% upfront bonus when you invest your money. And what I love about Bill Demery, I've met with him. He can explain this stuff in a way that I can understand. He breaks it down, and it's so easy, Nige.
You know, there's a lot of advisors on this station, but we only put our name on one advisor that we trust, both of us, and that's Bill Demery, your retirement guy.
Help take care of your hard-earned money and reach out to Bill Demery right now. 317-648-5120. Ask about the 15% upfront bonus. 317-648-5120. Past performance is no guarantee of future returns.
So I came to Advent because I was experiencing recurrent sinus infections. As a new mom, it was really kind of difficult.
Many of our patients complain of sinus infections. The headaches, fatigue, and nasal stuffiness have a profound effect on their lives.
I just felt like your sickness starts affecting your energy level and, the things that you really enjoy doing. That really was a breaking point for me.
So Molly came to Advent. Abnormally tight sinuses and swollen turbinates led to simple breathing triangle solutions that ended up taking about 20 minutes in office. And very soon thereafter, she was breathing freely.
I'm just in awe at the amount of air that that I'm able to breathe in and out each night, and I haven't had a sinus infection since the procedure.
I'm Dr. Madan Kandula. When you breathe well, you do live better.
Results may vary.
Will you be the one? This summer, Shepherd Community will spend hundreds of hours with 200 kids, learning, adventuring, and experiencing life-transforming relationships. Help us make a difference for one child. For just $28, you can impact a child for one day at Shepherd. One moment, one relationship can make a difference in the life of a child. You can be the one. Visit shepherdcommunity.org/be the one to give today. That's shepherdcommunity.org/be the one.
What's it like to choose your IPS? It starts with a strong foundation, pre-K. Then choose from elementary schools for every learning style, like Montessori, STEM, and dual language. 100% of IPS middle school students get computer science and music. High school prepares your child for college and a career with 32 career pathways. At IPS, it's about the journey and the destination. Choose your IPS.
This ad was paid for by Indianapolis Public Schools.
Heat and cool your man cave, attic, garage, or bonus room without adding ductwork with Mitsubishi Electric ductless mini splits.
To find out more, just go to absolutecomfort.org.
You let him try violin because you love him. And if you love him that much, love him enough to make sure he's buckled up and in the back seat. Find out more at nhtsa.gov/the right seat. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
It's the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIPC.
Welcome back to the Tony Kinnett Cast here on 93 WIBC. So earlier in the show, I mentioned that President Biden was kind of backed into this weird corner because his poll numbers are so awful, are so low that not just among, again, independents or moderates, not just among, again, suburban groups, but among groups that are supposed to be Democratic mainstays. So as far as demographic voting blocks are concerned, black voters are not anywhere near what the Biden administration is looking to see. As many as, depending on the region, between 10 and 20% of black voters have shifted over to saying that they are planning on voting for Donald Trump, even if they're not voting for any other Republican in office. And what I said was this means that Biden is likely going to go around the country and he's going to try to target groups based on the DEI model, which is where he looks at them and says, you're really great because you are insert this color, you are insert this gender or non-gender or whatever, and therefore you should vote for me because you are these labels. And I said that, and I did not think that already we would have such an immaculate example here on the show. So just a few minutes ago, Joe Biden, whatever intern runs his account, because you and I both know by this evening he's like knee deep into some snack pack pudding mix or something. Joe Biden's account tweeted, "Folks, if anyone is wondering whether your vote matters, remember this." And he doesn't actually put a colon. He just says, remember this, as though that's a whole sentence. He says, because black Americans voted, I am president. Kamala Harris is a historic vice president. There's that historic again. I love that so much. And Donald Trump is a loser. So I love a few things about that tweet. Number one, because the fear is so palpable in every single tweet at this point that we're not even waiting until we get close to the election for Biden to get out there and say the things that you and I both know is coming. Remember, the put y'all back in chains comment about Mitt Romney. Remember the you ain't black comment that he made that was really disastrous. Those kinds of things are coming. The stories about growing up in a black church in the Puerto Rican neighborhood next to the Jewish deli in which he lived with Honduran people. It's just fantastic. I cannot wait for what we see here. It is truly no wonder, honestly, that the Democrat National Convention is talking about putting in some type of secret early vote, some kind of virtual check-in in order to push President Biden through to be the nominee this time, because my goodness, the argument that you elected me and that's great because my vice president is historic, which means she's the first woman vice president and also she's the first vice president of color. So she's the first not white vice president. Well, she's not technically the first not white vice president. Actually, we had a Native American vice president. She's the first woman who is also not white, half, that is the vice president. Like, that's his argument. Again, I will point out very clearly that in battleground states, people don't care about this. People care about that in California. In San Fran, yeah, good for you, man. You can walk out with all of the pronouns and colors and genders and drag shows that you've been to, like on the front of your shirt, like a nice laminated card. And I'm sure that will get you moved up in restaurant reservations if anyone could afford food in San Francisco. But here in the battleground states, I've gone up to Detroit and I've talked to UAW auto workers who, by the way, many of whom were black. And they, lifelong Democrat voters, said, I love Donald Trump even though he's a blank hole, because I had money on the table, or excuse me, I had food on the table and money in my pocket. Those are the exact words. I have the video. It's really quite interesting to see that while a lot of the UAW workers were not really supposed to be talking to media, and they didn't really want to come up and chat with us about the strike itself, they wanted to come up and talk about how much they despised Joe Biden and how much they, even though they may think he's kind of a jerk, as Quaid said recently, now you actually have a lot of Americans who have come to the conclusion the guy who says nice things in front of you and then ruins the economy and the international stage and everything else is not as good as the guy who says something that you kind of cringe every once in a while. I really wish he wouldn't have said it maybe in that particular way. But then he goes and honestly has a pretty uneventful presidency in that you really don't have to worry about much because gas prices are low and food is good. So going into this huge election season, it's going to be wild, guys. I hope you are ready for the true climax of 2016. It's been 2016 for like 8 years at this point. We're all exhausted. But for this last season to finish correctly, what we really need to see is just the slam bam fantastic finish with all the fireworks. I cannot wait for this debate. Can you? This is going to be something special because Biden's been hyping it up. You know, I hear you're free on Wednesdays. And Donald Trump saying that he's like the corrupt man is going to take over the country. It truly is peak entertainment. And it's a macabre form of entertainment because, you know, the country is in a particularly rough place. Again, people are struggling to afford food. People are unsafe. Crime is rampant. Illegal immigration, the international stage is truly disastrous. But it's funny in a sense that it is hilarious that at this point of divergence between two American ideas, and Senator Marco Rubio just released a video on this, and I think it's very apt. I wrote an article about it this afternoon, that the ideas of family, faith, and community, which Biden called ancient ideas that we should move away from in his last State of the Union address where he yelled at everyone, that half of America is truly going to pursue those three things, and the other half of America is losing faith in the leftist ideas that have completely failed to replace them. We will be back tomorrow. A lot of great stuff, some great interview content as well. This is the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
I love summertime. I love going to the ball game. I love